Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special presentation on Apostle for Jesus English edition today. Uh, and our presentation today is from Europe, from England, and we are proud to present to you this evening a special guest to tell us about his story, the story of meeting the Lord in his heart and of believing in him. As you know, Western Europe, the continent where it needs to be preached again about the Christ, to be baptized again in the name of the Holy Trinity, after unfortunately it abandoned the Christian faith and went after the idols of this world. Father Filip Lommaert was born in October 10, 1961 in Menin, Belgium. As were most Belgians at the time, he was nominally brought up in the Roman Catholic faith, although in his teens he lapsed. After his baccalaureate at the Royal Athenaeum in Menin, he joined the Belgian Armed Forces, training as a medic specialized in hyperbolic medicine. He achieved the rank of staff sergeant in the cavalry and chief petty officer in the Navy, the two arms to which he was detached during the nearly 8 years he spent in the armed forces. Having met and married his wife, Anna Mika, in Great Britain in 1986, he left the armed forces and moved to the UK, working as hyperbaric technician, diver, and H&S consultant on compressed air tunneling projects, as well as accompanying his wife to Cyprus from 1991 to 1993, where she was on a temporary assignment. In Cyprus, he became interested in the Orthodox Church, and on their return to the UK, he became a catechumen at the Greek Orthodox Church of Christ the Saviour in Welling, London, and was baptized in the Orthodox Church on October 12, 1997. In 2002, he and his wife moved to Dorset, which they had visited many times, and in 2003, Philip started working for Dorset Police as police staff in the custody suite in Weymouth. Upon finding the Orthodox Christian parish of St. Edward in Athelhampton, he became a parishioner there, and in 2008, he was ordained reader. In May 2012, he was ordained subdeacon by Metropolitan, now his Beatitude John X, during the Antiochian Conference in Swanwick, Derbyshire. At the end of 2014, he resigned from Dorset Police to work as a freelance translator in order to be able to devote more time from his time to the church. He was ordained a deacon in May 2015 by Metropolitan Ignatius Al-Husni of Western Europe in the Orthodox Church parish of St. Botolph, London, to continue serving at St. Edward's at Athelhampton. In October 2015, the newly enthroned Metropolitan Silwan of the British Isles and Ireland asked him to serve at the Orthodox Christian Church of St. Dunstan of Canterbury in Poole, as the parish there was rapidly growing. On Sunday, July 29, 2018, His Eminence Metropolitan Silwan ordained Deacon Philip to the priesthood during the hierarchical liturgy at St. Dunstan Church. Father Philip has been serving as assistant priest to Father Chrysostom, and today, apart from his duties as assistant priest at St. Dunstan's, he works as a part-time chaplain at Dorchester County Hospital and at Forston Mental Health Hospital, both in Dorchester, Southwest England. We welcome all your questions and comments, and we kindly ask you to share today's episodes. Without further ado, we welcome Filip Lommaert at Apostles for Jesus to talk to us about this evening about his pilgrimage into Orthodoxy. Bienvenue, Père Philip. Welcome.
Uh, Thank you, shukran. Um, First of all, Doctor, I would like to thank you for inviting me on Apostles for Jesus. It's a great honor. I've been following your programs for a little while since one of our parishioners introduced me to them. And this evening, I would like to talk about my journey, which in a way went from being a Roman Catholic, becoming atheist, and then becoming Orthodox, and since 2018 being a priest. Um, I grew up in an average sized town in Belgium. Um, my parents insisted that myself and my brother we attended Roman Catholic religious education classes at our school, which was a state school, and we did our first communion at 6, and then at 12 we did our Holy Communion, which was actually a very enjoyable time, as I can still remember, because for 3, 4 months shortly after New Year, um, you were attending extra classes where they were preparing you for your Holy Communion, and it also involved a week-long retreat at a monastery, and I quite enjoyed that, and I have only good memories about that. Of course, after my Holy Communion, I was 12 years old, and I was starting what we would call the higher school from 12 to 18, and there were more options in the directions to study, and one of them was humanism instead of the religious education classes, which were in our school either Roman Catholic religion or Protestant. The thing was, everybody knew that the teacher at that school who was teaching humanism was quite well known in the area, and he was very well known for being a really, really good teacher. So when my parents gave me the choice, I opted to attend the classes of this teacher of humanism, which were strangely called on the school curriculum morality. And the teacher, Mr. Zuter, was a very strict teacher. Never met anybody as strict as he was. He expected you to ask permission to sneeze or to cough. But on the other hand, he was a really gentle man. He never failed anybody in the exams, and he taught me something that has been with me the rest of my life and even now, and has served me very well, and is serving me extremely well as an Orthodox priest. And that is respect for the other. Because his motto was, how can you expect that somebody respects you if you do not respect that person yourself? And it was kind of a revelation when we were told. I mean, this was early mid 70s. A lot of changes were going on in the world. Uh, Unfortunately, the world had become a lot more secular. Uh, and I must admit, I continued in this kind of secular atheist movement. Enjoyed life to the full, as a young man would do, and I joined the armed forces. And in the first year I was in the armed forces, my father was very, very ill. So, he had terminal cancer, and strangely enough, one person in the army barracks gave me a tremendous amount of support, and that was the padre, the Roman Catholic padre, who knew very well that I was no longer an active member of the church and had kind of sidestepped it and become an atheist. But he was there for me, and he was there for me at any time. and he even helped for me to get extra leave to go and see my dad in hospital. And he organized for my dad to be present on my passing out parade. Unfortunately, my father then passed away. I still remember that time. It was a difficult time, but it was very much soothed by the intervention of this very kind priest who did not care whether I was Roman Catholic or a believer or not. I was a human being, and he was a padre, so he was there to look after us and our souls and our well-being. This was obviously for the time where, uh, as many public instances and even the armed forces have psychologists and wellness and mental health coaches or counselors. This was very much a bit the role the padre fulfilled, and at this he was very good. So in 1985, I met my wife to be, Animiga, quite furtively, and 5 meetings later, over a period of 8 months, we got married. And my honeymoon was to Greece. We went to Santorini, did all the things honeymooners do, but also we visited quite a few churches, and it left an impression on me. We went to the monastery on the hill, and it something was awakening. I didn't know what it was, but you know, something was happening. And then in 1989, I went to Cyprus to work as a diving instructor for 3-4 months. And again, I now and then went to church, just attending. I didn't take part as such. I was just there as a kind of a silent observer. And in '91, we moved to Cyprus, to the town of Larnaca. And we had a really nice time, especially because people were so friendly and so forthcoming and so welcoming. And we soon had a not unsubstantial group of friends, which meant we were regularly invited to weddings and baptisms, and even, unfortunately, the odd funeral. But then in 1992, my friend Akis, he said, "Oh, this year you should come and take part in our Pascha." He said, my family and I, we always go to this very small monastery on the Green Line, which is the border with northern Cyprus. And I remember there was this tiny little church, and I think 5 steps away from the church was actually a military observation post with armed soldiers. It's quite strange to see that, to see the house of the Lord, the church, and next to it, an army observation post with armed soldiers. So we were there for this service. Obviously, we had to stay outside because there were so many people. And I remember the priest was a monk, and he was really, really old. And I can remember when they did the procession around the church, the two servers, they were kind of carrying him, because I can definitely say there was a gap between the ground and his feet. And I found that so touching. Um, and after this, we all went to the home of one of the family members, and we broke our fast and had our feast. And the next day, as everywhere else in Greece and Cyprus, a lamb was put on a spit and roasted. And I think the same week, Bright Week, I was walking through Larnaca on an errand, and I passed the Church of St. Lazarus. And it was as if something was drawing me in. I had to go in. There was no service, so I walked in, and I actually prayed for the first time in 20 years. And for me, that was a life-changing moment. I started attending the services there. I didn't make myself known to anybody. I was not ready for that. I was not ready, I must admit, maybe not very daring, but I didn't want to commit myself yet. So, 93, we left Cyprus, and it was a great sadness because we really had enjoyed our life and especially the people there. I had a brief stop in Belgium and went back to the UK to work in compressed head tunneling. And I was staying in a place called Welling, which is on the outskirts of Greater London. And in Welling, there is a Greek Orthodox church belonging to the Ecumenical Patriarchate. So I started attending. And there I did make myself known and, started to get talking to people. And I remember somebody asked me and said, "Why do you keep coming to this church? You're not Orthodox. You're definitely not Greek or Cypriot." And I said, "No, I'm none of the above." He said, "Why are you coming?" I said, "Well, I would like to become an Orthodox Christian." And the person who was part of the church committee, or the parish council, looked at me and said, "No, you don't." I said, "Well, yes, I do." He said, "We will need to discuss this with the priest." So Father Michael got involved and we had a nice long chat, and he said, "Yes, okay, I will take you on as a catechumen, and from now on you will attend every Tuesday evening at the church house for Bible study," which I did. And following that, I was working in an office for a little while, and one of the gentlemen there was George, was a Greek gentleman, and he was Orthodox, and he was living in southwest London, was part of his Orthodox Church parish council. So I asked him, could he do the honor of being my godfather and sponsor me? And he said, "Yes, I would love to, but I can't." And I asked him, "Well, is there a problem?" He said, "No, it's not really a problem, but a Greek custom is that if you become a godparent to a boy, you have to be, if you have further godchildren, they have to be boys. You cannot mix." And I said, "Okay." At the same time, I was 20 meters from my little flat I had in Welling was a little Cypriot steakhouse, which did steaks and Cypriot delicacies. And the gentleman who ran it was Michael and his son, and in weekends his wife and his daughter, youngest daughter, would come and help. And we got on very well. And one day I asked him, I said, "Would you like to be my godfather?" And his answer was, "I thought you'd never ask me." So we got that problem sorted. But then a date was fixed. It was the 12th of October. And my godfather Michael and the Father Michael Pazinas had decided that excuse me, because I had been so long away from the church, I had to be baptized again. No, a christening would not do. So I was baptized again. I remember it was a very sunny day, but it was a very cold day. And quite a funny thing was that as they didn't have hot water in the church, they only had a kettle. They had to fill the baptismal font with kettles of hot water, which the reader, Christophoros, spent probably an hour doing, running back and forth, waiting 2 minutes for the kettle to boil, which is quite hilarious, really. And yes, I became an Orthodox Christian. And I remember I was glowing. It was one of the best things I've ever done. And I made some friends, like my the person who couldn't be my godfather, George, and then Christophoros. They have since then attended my ordination to the diaconate, and they were also present in 2018 when I was ordained by San Yedna Siloam to the priesthood. And they are very dear friends. Unfortunately, Christophoros lost his wife beginning of last year due to COVID. But they are people I still get in touch with, and they are people I have to credit in a way with probably why I am here talking to you about my journey as an Orthodox priest. Because even when I was ordained as a subdeacon in 2012 by then Metropolitan, now His Beatitude, John X, I hadn't even thought about diaconate or even definitely not priesthood. It was, honestly, if somebody had asked me, I would have probably chuckled and said, I don't think so. But my time at St. Edward's with Father David was very good, because it all started quite innocently, very subtle. Father David had become the parish priest there, as Father Chrysostom, who used to be the parish priest, moved on to Poole, to St. Dunstan's, and so Deacon David Harris became the priest. His wife was providing the chanting with now and then some people who came in to help. And one day, Father David asked me, Philip, could you help me behind the screen? So I helped. And the week after, yes, can you help again? And within a couple of months, I was asked, can you do the readings? And I did the readings, and the kind of snowball effect started. Before I knew it, we were May 2012, and I was in front of Patriarch John. When I became a deacon in 2015, just before that, I gave up working for the police, because I had been speaking with my spiritual father, I had been speaking with Father David, I had been speaking with other priests within our archdiocese, who said that, well, actually, canonically, you cannot be involved in any occupation where there might be bloodshed or violence. And my work with Dorset Police was as a detention officer, so it meant I was actually working in a cell block, and I had to deal with people. I mean, most people were very, very nice people, no problem whatsoever. But now and then there were some people that thought otherwise, and would, might sometimes be very aggressive. And so I resigned my position I left on the last day of 2014, and the 1st of January I was a self-employed translator, mainly translating French, Dutch, and Flemish into English. And because of my background, which was mainly medical and health and safety, that's were the subjects of the translation work I did. Um, but in May, I became a deacon. Like I said, um, George and his wife Lynn, and then Christopheros and Tekla were there, which made all the difference to me. Together with and my godfather had passed away by then, and so his wife Kyriakou and their son came to the ordination. So it was really very enjoyable, very touching. Um, but when I returned to the parish, it was fine. I mean, I always enjoyed the parish of St. Edward's, this beautiful little church. Um, I spent so many years there. But then um, Metropolitan Syedna Silwan came to the UK and became our metropolitan. And he rightly decided that, well, um, the needs for a deacon in a church which has around 20, 25 people on average is not as high as the need of a parish which has 80 or 90 people every week and has maybe a couple of hundred of parishioners who regularly attend. So I went to St. Dunstan's and I was warmly welcomed by Father Chrysostom, and he has been my mentor ever since. Um, Best mentor I could have wished for or prayed for, even. Um, we are very much on the same wavelength. We think alike, although, to use Eastern terminology, we're a bit yin and yang. Like I said, we have never had words or disagreement on anything, but we are very different. Father Chrysostom is more a reserved man. I am more a people person. Um, and so we have this perfect balance that he tends to concentrate on catechumens and people privately. I tend to more concentrate on um, the public in general, so to speak. And the parish has steadily been growing. I mean, now I think we average around 140 to 150 parishioners on a Sunday for the Divine Liturgy. We, I would say, would lie if I say we. Father Chrysostom has been extremely busy with catechumens. There have been many people who have now become Orthodox who were Protestant or Roman Catholic before. So my journey, I could say, well, it's been a happy one. It's taken its time. I mean, this year will be 25 years since I became an Orthodox Christian. Um, but I have enjoyed every step of it. It hasn't always been easy, and there have been obstacles, and there will always be obstacles because that such is life. And I pray to God that for many, many more years I might be able to serve at St. Dunstan, as well as being able in the very near future to start a mission west in Somerset. Um, I have um, an understanding with a Church of England parish that would like me to come and hold services. It's just now a matter of clearing it with the Church of England hierarchy, so to speak.
Thank you, Father, very much. That was a quiet journey from where you were and where you are now. And it actually raises a lot of questions and, you know, and a lot of things that needs to be discussed. I don't know how much we can talk about them today. I have some questions for you from the audience and also one or two from myself. Let me
Mm-hmm.
start with those questions so we can. One of the first question came from Rogina Wolfenden. I think this is one of your parishioner,
Yes,
our dear
yes,
Rogina. She always with us.
I
She
know.
says, in your opinion, Father, which part of the Orthodoxy have managed to highlight the beauty of the Eastern Orthodox Christianity?
So which parts? Sorry,
Which part of Orthodoxy have managed to highlight the beauty of the Eastern Orthodox Christianity?
it's a very wide and big question. Um, well, I mean, personally, I have experience from a Greek, being in a Greek parish or Cypriot parish, as being an ecumenical. So my first years were spent attending church services in Kine Greek and with Byzantine chant. Um, I am a student of Arabic, and I must say student, stress the word student, because I do quite enjoy the Arabic divine liturgy and services and the style, and also I must admit, I like the Arabic Byzantine chant because it is Byzantine, but it has a very distinct style of its own.
Yeah, definitely.
So yes, so for me it will be difficult to pinpoint because, well, if we just look at his Beatitude John, and even at my own metropolitan, they all studied in Greece and to obtain doctorates in liturgical music. So there is definitely still this a conversion and a mixing and also a call it symbiosis of the two styles, the Greek and
Sure.
the Antiochian style. I mean, the Antiochian style has really only properly started developing since the beginning of the 1900s, when the churches in the Antiochian Patriarchate decided to hold their divine liturgies in Arabic to benefit,
Hmm.
obviously, uh, their parishioners who are all Arabic speaking.
Let
Um,
me, yeah, go ahead.
yes, so sure, go,
No, no.
please.
Well, I would like just like to rephrase the question and, and put it in different way. Being in Europe, Western Europe, and as I mentioned in my introduction, unfortunately, I believe that Western Europe betrayed the Christ, abandoned Christianity, went another after the idols of this world, different idols, different color, different shapes, and different names. In your experience as coming from Belgium, from Roman Catholic background through atheism into Orthodoxy, and now you are living in England, where Christianity was most abandoned, how how do you think the best way to introduce orthodoxy to the Western mind, to the Western society? Whether is it better to introduce orthodoxy through dogmas and teaching or through liturgical life, which include the services, the chanting, the music, the iconography, etc.?
I would definitely say through the liturgical life, and especially through love, because we live in a world where everybody's opinionated, where everybody gets very easily and too easily upset or offended, as they say. So I personally, and this is a personal thought, I think not by dogma. Um, it should be by love, and with the beauty of our liturgical services, because that's why I always hear and have always heard from people who are not Orthodox and who are either Roman Catholic, Protestant, or even non-believers, atheists. They all will all say the same thing. Orthodox services are so beautiful, the music, the chanting, everything. We feel like we're in a really special place. So I think that would be the way forward. And also, um, maybe stress what the Antiochian Church in this country has been trying to say all along, that the UK, or the British, let us say the British Isles and Ireland, were Christian, and Christian a very, very long time ago. I mean, from the first century, there were people who were Christian. Um, I mean, that's what I've always noticed, that surprises, for instance, people who come from Orthodox countries, whether they are former Russian republics, Eastern Europe, or even Greece, Cyprus, when they see on Sunday, when we read the names of the saints of that day, and they see saints from the third century and fourth century, they seem to be taken aback. They can't. I had people who didn't believe it. They thought we were making it up. And then a couple of years ago, the Russian Orthodox Church um, added dozens or hundreds even of names of British saints to be commemorated. So we have to stress this thing, which the Antiochian Church has been trying to do, is that yes, these islands were, are and were Christian, and it's important to tell people that. But we have to tell them. We can't just expect people to come looking for us. We have to literally do again, as the Antiochian Church has been doing worldwide, use our motto, come and see.
Definitely, indeed, indeed. I have another question from Amani Sam'an, and then I will let Karam and Laith, to ask if they have more questions. Amani says about the youth in the Orthodox Church. What would be your best advice to the parents about keeping the youth in the Orthodox Church? Now, remember, especially in the Western society, we don't have many Orthodox schools. Unfortunately, barely we have very few Orthodox schools to keep the faith of the youth and also to teach them and to keep them in the Orthodox Church so they won't be redirected to other foreign beliefs. So, what would be your best advice to the parents about keeping the youth in the Orthodox Church?
My best advice would be, first of all, um, if there is no provision for it, is to have Sunday school. And if there is none in your parish because the logistics or the people are not really there, try and organize something. We have Sunday school, and it's been going now for years. And since last year, we have now a second group, an older group, So we have two groups now having Sunday school. We tend to keep it nice and short. Nothing, uh, nothing is better to keep young children concentrate than keeping it short. And we normally do it during the reading of the homily, because sometimes I can understand that a 5, 6 year old is not really interested in a homily. I mean, first of all, I think the language and the vocabulary might be a bit uh, too complicated for them, and that's okay. They're small children. Um, Also, we have been blessed in our parish. We have quite a few young people who have become Orthodox. We have even 17, 18-year-old children. But then obviously we also had the problem where suddenly one year you have a family coming with their children, and then suddenly the following year or after summer, there's one person missing, the eldest normally, especially when they turn 14, 15. And one thing I noticed that always has been counterproductive was where the parents forced the child to come to church. We noticed that where parents just said, "Okay, you come if you want to, you don't come." We noticed that after a year or 2 years, they tend to come back by themselves. But if you force them to come, it's it's like in general with young people. You keep telling them they cannot do something, they will do it. Or if you say they have to do something, they will do anything they can not to do it. But it's a combination of the parents' education, but also the church's education. So that the church has to try and provide um, Sunday schools or even social events for these young people where they can get together with like minded Orthodox young people. Because we lose too many young people to, as you were calling it earlier, um, the secular ways of the West. Um, I know that some clergy, and I'm not talking about Orthodox clergy in particular, avoid wearing any sign or clothing that might identify them as being a Christian priest or reverend, because of fear of being insulted or accosted or shouted at. I never, I never participated in that. Um, I am an Orthodox priest, and um, I am there, and everybody will see that can see that I am an Orthodox priest, so that if they want to talk to me about it, and people do, I have even people approaching me at the petrol station, at the supermarket, um, because they can see I'm a priest, and I think that's the way forward, because the last 15, 20, 30 years there has been too much of an effort of Western churches trying to look cool, to blend in. So hence, you see certain churches where the clergy don't wear any clothing that marks them out as being the pastor or the shepherd of that church.
There is something you mentioned quite important, or I found it important, especially with the Protestant churches here in US about the social events. Now, no doubt, Sunday schools are very important because they teach the Orthodox faith where it's not taught anywhere else except in the Orthodox churches. However, besides teaching, besides duplicating the besides duplicating the schools, they go every day too for our youth during the weekdays. We would like to present to them something a little bit different, like as you mentioned, which is, I think it's quite important, which is the activities, a field or a place where they can have social activities in the context of the Orthodox Church, observed activities, so they can feel that the church is their home. It's not only to be taught about God, is only to be taught about the church. It's also to play with their friends, to meet with them, to make friendship, to do trips, and also, of course, those will be under direct supervision. And I think that the Orthodox churches have not, or did not have much experience in the past, but now it is that the church is, finds this more and more and more important in the life of the parishes, because it's very important because our kids, our youth, they need social events in their life. If you don't present to them the environment, the right environment for them, then they will go to the not the wrong environment to have those social events, and that's quite important. Laith Karam, do you have any? I know there are more questions. Any questions or comments you have?
Yes, Father, let me go back a little bit to your journey. I want to ask about your atheist time. What did you find in the atheism to be an atheist? What's the thing that pulled you to this type of thinking? Or
Well, this was the time I became an atheist, and so did my wife, Oriana Mika, because she at one stage she was even kind of the president of the Young Humanist Society in the town she lived in. It was the fact that at that time there were more and more cases of abuse within the church, as in abuse of youngsters by priests, and also then the not so well forthcoming attitude of the hierarchy, kind of trying to hide it away. Um, and I know many young people who said, they got more clips around the ears from the priest than they ever did from their own father. So, and that was a bit, also this. And one of the things that was quite instrumental in me moving away from Roman Catholicism was this thing of all the time, yes, you're doomed, you'll burn in hell, But you didn't get a chance, There was no way, you're going to come out of this successful, this it was only downhill. It was only, pain and that's why it pushed away a lot of people. I mean, things have changed since then. But in 60s, 70s, the church was struggling a bit, especially the Catholic Church, with a transitional period. I mean, mid 60s, they stopped holding Latin Rite masses. I mean, it was with Vatican II, and a whole other series of renovations were being introduced. Um, but for me, it was mainly this thing of about being doomed and whatever you did, there was no salvation, so to speak. And
yes.
I
So, Father,
I enjoy.
sorry, comparing
Yes, yes.
what you said with like they have like the punishment, the burning, all of in the Orthodox like theology. What did you find differently from
Uh,
these perspectives?
it was that we were not guilty of Adam's and Eve's sin, because the Catholic Church, it was all the time, it's because of them we are doomed. There's no hope for us. We are evil, we are bad, we have to fail because of Adam and Eve. In the Orthodox Church, it was a completely different thing. I was told, and so is everybody else who gets initiated into the Orthodox Church, that yes, Adam and Eve, they sinned, they didn't obey God's instruction. And because of that, we are not doomed. We are fallen, but there is hope. And God gave us free will. And that free will is not, as some might think, just to do whatever you like to do. it is free will, that we have to decide whether we sin or not. So that if people will do something that's considered sinful, they can stop it. They could sit down and say, well, hold it. If I do this, I sin, but I don't have to do it. And also, the other thing, I think one of the most beautiful things I find in Orthodoxy is God is a God of love, and God will always, always forgive you if you ask for forgiveness and if you show repentance. It's the big four-letter word, love. That's what God is in the Orthodox Church.
Yes, thank you, Father.
He wants us to succeed.
For sure, amen. Dr. Adnan, we have a question from Susan. If you...
From Susan?
Yes.
Actually, Susan says, Father Philip, when you were baptized into the Orthodox Church, was that the first baptism you ever had as a Christian?
No, it wasn't. That's why it was quite strange, because when I was born, small anecdote, I was born a month early. I was born at 8 months, so I went straight into an incubator. I only found out 2 years ago that my mum told me that she only first laid eyes on me when I was 14 days old. But because I was premature, my grandmother, on my mother's side, my godmother, she quickly organized her local priest to come to the hospital on the third day to baptize me. So I had been baptized when I was 3 days old. And like I said, to be chrismated would have probably been sufficient when I became Orthodox. But my godfather, Michael, and the priest of the parish of in Welling, Christ Saviour, decided that because I had been so long away and had been an atheist, they wanted me to have a full baptism.
Okay, Leith.
Okay, Father. Father, I have a small question. Actually, one question, but two parts. First part about the Catholic that you talk about it, about the salvation and there's no hope and something like this. Didn't you see like they have the purgatory? You know, you can go to somewhere that you can clean you up before you go to heaven. So don't you saw that it's a hope for you? You know, even if I'm a sinner, that's fine. I will go there for a while, then I'll be clean up, then I'll go to heaven after that.
I think the word is purgatory, yes. No, because as a young man, you don't think about it, what's going to happen in 20, 30, 40 years. You live for the moment, and you wanted to, well, as most young people, I think, and as most people, even adults, I think we all want to be loved or feel loved, and especially by God. And yes, as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, you don't think about purgatory, I can tell you that. But the thing was that because in those days, the 70s, in Western Europe and in Belgium, secularism, because of it being used by many socialist governments to fight against religion, as trying to remove the dominance that had been until after the Second World War of the church's influence in matters of state in many, many countries, were promoting really humanism quite strongly. And the thing, as I said, the teacher we had in our school, he was really good because he did actually, maybe unbeknown to him, or unless he was very, very master of his field, he was stressing this theme of respect. I mean, I would say in the Orthodox Church, we would use that. We would say, replace that word respect with love for the other.
Yes, Father.
Father, I
Let's.
have two quick. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
Leif,
ahead,
do you have
Karam.
part
Sorry.
two?
I
Part
just
two?
have something very, very quick. Like, now, how you look about to the other part of to the other Christianity, as I say it in the West, religions, other religions, Christianity, like Catholic, Protestant, and how you look at them, and how you teach your, let's say, your parishioner how to deal with them, how to react with them, how to communicate and do the sometimes prayers,
Well,
sometimes we are all Christian at the end.
exactly. And the thing is, I do not. The last thing I want to do is come over as somebody who says if it's not Orthodox, it's not good enough. Far from it. The hospitals I work as a chaplain to all people of all faiths and none. And most of the people I visit and who ask for a chaplain are non-Orthodox. And something brings me back just quickly to this story of Saint Silouan of Mount Athos when he was traveling on the train with this rather zealous Archimandrite who was telling how brilliant Orthodoxy was and how, well, not good enough all other Western Christianity was, and how he pointed out a group of people who were Catholics and told them how privileged he was and how poor they were, and where Saint Silouan said, well, they believe in God, they believe in the Virgin Mary, they believe in the Trinity. It's just that, well, they haven't maybe had the chance to discover Orthodoxy. And I think we have to look at it that way. I have very good relationships with people of the Church of England and of the Roman Catholic Church, and I wish to keep it that way.
Thank you, Father. But you said very important word, discovering Orthodoxy. When I was like Catholic before, I look at the Orthodox people as like people who just believe in one thing and they don't want to listen to others. That was my problem. But when I start reading and I start discovering, I discovered the beauty of the real prayers and the real orthodoxy. When I say orthodox, I don't mean doctrine or religion or
No,
anything.
no.
I mean the way of life, the Jesus life. Now I can understand how we can be like Jesus in life by understanding orthodoxy. Yes, Father.
No, well, I would say for me it's exactly the same as for you. Um, yes, it was only by getting into contact with the church and attending services like I did once, mainly when I came back to the UK and started attending the church in Welling, because there were people there who could actually inform me of what was being said and how things worked, and of attending the Bible classes, and that's what kind of opened up this beautiful world which is called Orthodoxy.
Yes. Yes, Dr. Adnan.
Well, Abuna, since you are living in England, Orthodoxy or the Orthodox Church is the church of the minority in Europe. It's not the minority church because it is the church. So, as the church of minority, how would you contribute, or what are the best ways for the Orthodox Church in the West to deliver the message of Orthodoxy to the Western people? What is the best way to make them know Christ as he is in the Orthodox Church, not like what they think about Christ in other faith and denominations?
I think we have to try and do away with this myth that we are, as Orthodox, we are exotic and we are just there for small groups who have come from abroad, because that's what, even in some areas in the UK, is still happening, that some churches are kind of little parts of the diaspora of whatever country they represent or group. We have to be out there. I think there should be more concerted efforts by any of the Orthodox churches in this country to take part more with public life. And one good example is for instance, Archbishop Angelos of the Coptic Church. Anything happens, he's there. If there is something about religion or something about things changing in the church in general, he will be on the television. He will be in the newspapers. And I think our clergy should be more involved with that. We should be more
with social
visible.
life.
With social life, but also with events.
Public life.
Public life. I mean, next week, our neighborhood, our village where we moved to, are organizing a Greek evening. And they asked me, could you please come, in your exorason as a Greek priest to give the blessing? And I said, of course I will. Because that's how it works. People need to see you, and people then start asking questions. And people then, I had it already, where people stop me because they see me stopping at the shop in my ras on my way to church. You say, oh, you look strange, and you start talking and go, oh, how is it different from the Church of England? Or and it's planting little seeds.
True.
Sure.
But if you got
Any more
it's
questions? Yeah. Go ahead, Abuna.
It's like in the parable about, if you light a lamp, you're not going to hide it under a bushel. And we should do the same. We should not be ashamed of being Orthodox, just the opposite. And we should say that, well, it's there for everybody.
So let your shine, let your light shine, to the whole world.
Exactly.
Not like to be hidden.
No.
That's correct. That's correct. Actually, that's what we are trying to tell everybody, that the Orthodox Church, the Orthodox clergy, have to be more active publicly, and with courage and with confidence and with the great faith and prayer, and be the great and the best witnesses of Christ to the world, because the world is more and more abandoning Christ, more and more turning its back to him. So we have to introduce Christ to them again and preach them again. Unfortunately, especially with the lands that, witnessed Christianity and Orthodoxy in the beginning, in the first few centuries, like England, like France, and then after 20 centuries of Christianity, we see that light, the light of Christ, became more and more smaller and smaller, unfortunately. Any more question, Karam and Laith?
One last thing before we end, Father. Just tell us, now we are in the Lenten season. Tell us how you practice the Lenten season in the United Kingdom, like with all of the new civilization. People, maybe they don't like to quit food, don't like. So just tell us a little bit about the Lenten season in UK.
Well, in UK, it can be quite, I would call it hilarious, because some people I work with, they go, oh yes, I'm taking my Great Lent very serious. I'm giving up chocolate. And, as an Orthodox Christian, you have to hold yourself back then, because otherwise you will become boastful and prideful, which means you become like become the proverbial Pharisee. You can't just say yes, but it's a bit different with us. We don't eat dairy, meat, fish, wine, oil on certain days. The thing is, obviously, it's much easier now, probably in the West, to follow Great Lent as a diet than it was 20, 30 years ago, because of more vegan and vegetarian options being available. In our parish, we are on Fridays holding the Akatis for the Holy Mother of God. Because we have nearly weekly baptisms going on, so on Saturdays both of us are normally in church so that people can come for confession, because that's one of the parts we quite try and encourage people to definitely come for confession a bit prior to Pascha. This year, of course, it's slightly different. I mean, people had 2 years of COVID and they couldn't really come to church, a lot of them, in the previous 2 years during Great Lent, and then other events in the world, serious events in the world. And I've noticed that people this year take it very much too hard, this Great Lent, as in sticking to it, as in following the fasting rules and prayer and confession and coming to church and take Holy Communion.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Abuna. We would like, hopefully, in the future after Pascha, to have some special presentation on Saturdays with the people of England, whether clergy or laymen, and discuss various topics, liturgical, theological, biblical, and hopefully with your help and with the help of the parish. And at the end, I would like to remind everybody that on March 24, which is next Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, US time, we have a special presentation by Dr. Jeannie Constantino, who published her most recent book about the crucifixion of the King of Glory. She will discuss with us, or she present with us 3 topics about 3 chapters of her book. The first chapter will be on the Jewish trial of the King of Glory, and that will be March 24, this coming Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, US time. And hopefully you will have a chance to be our live audience. Otherwise, you can watch it as recorded watching. And also, I would like to remind, I don't know if people in England or Europe, they have the opportunity to watch the movie about the life of Saint Nectarius, Man of God. And that will be the first presentation of this movie will be this coming Monday. So hopefully everyone will watch it, and to encourage the Orthodox production and introducing the Orthodox voice to this world. Abuna, thank you very much for your presence with us. It was a great blessing. And also we would like to thank our beloved Metropolitan Joseph and the Metropolitan Sulwan for having this opportunity, to allow us to communicate with you. And hopefully we will have healthy and great Pascha in this blessed season.
Well, thank you again very much for inviting me, and I would like to wish you all a very blessed journey through Great Lent and a wonderful and glorious Pascha. Thank you.
Thank you. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much.